Hey, what's going on, guys? Thanks for tuning in if you're watching. This is Strength Coach After Hours episode, either like 4 or 5, 77, somewhere along the lines of that. Got a couple questions this week we'd like to go over, and I know Mike has them. So if Mike would like to lead the way.
Alrighty. First one.
Alrighty
Then. First one is for Matthew, but I think Evan can also talk about it, and then we could all talk about general warm-ups. But can you please go over your warm-ups for sumo deadlift?
All right. So a lot of times when I do
make sure you speak up too.
Hey. So a lot of times when I do sumos, I already have squatted beforehand. So I'll usually pretty warmed up from that. So I'll just go over like the general warm up I do like on any lower body day because it's going to be pretty much the same whether I'm squatting or deadlifting or doing both. So I usually start off with my general warm up, which I think we're going to go over after this. But then the specific exercises I do after like my regular warm up that I would be doing on any given day. I've been doing a lot of, they're called 90-90 transfers lately. It's kind of hard to explain the positioning of it. I have a video back on my Instagram. If you look, it was like right after nationals. It's basically an exercise where you're manually kind of pulling your hips apart side to side. It's a pain in the ass to explain. But so I usually do that to kind of open up my hips. A lot of times, one thing I like to do is once I have some weight on the bar, is I would pull myself down into position and really focus on externally rotating my hips and really getting my knees out and kind of just sitting in the bottom position for like, 15, 20 seconds just to kind of feel my hips open up. And then, other than that, my external rotation is usually pretty good and I don't really have much of an issue with that. So for me, I know a lot of people have to do a lot of warming up for sumo, but honestly, for me, I can say I'm lucky and I really don't have to. I'd love to hear Evan chime in on like any specific exercises or drills he does for sumos.
I'm kind of different from you in the fact that I don't squat before I deadlift, hardly ever, unless I'm like a month or so out from a meet where I'll do 3 lift days. But typically I'll squat and bench, then I'll bench and deadlift on separate days. But I do a lot of like glute rehab stuff for my warm-ups. So it's basically like pump work, trying to get my glutes active. I don't do anything really special. I do a lot of like quadruped rocking stuff, some adductor work, some like foot elevated single leg bridge stuff, monster walks, band walks, just general hip prep stuff. But from there, as far as bar loads go, I'll usually go plate all the way up to 405, and then depending on whatever my working weight is, I'll jump 25 pounds at a time kind of thing. Like, I don't really do anything special. I don't really recommend that for a lot of my athletes. I know it's just something I've been doing for like 4 years now, and I don't really feel like changing it. But typically I'll tell people go like 50% for 5, 60% for 5, 70%, and then depending on whatever your working weight is for the day, just kind of take a step in between and then kind of hit it.
Yeah, I think a big part of my warm-ups too also just comes from doing like my general warm-up like I talked about before. I do a lot of band work, so band right above the knees, and I'll do some drills where I'm start off pushing both knees out, kind of just squat and hold it for a little bit, and then after keeping like the left knee out, I'll let the right knee cave and then push it out 8 times, left knee 8 times, and then both 8 times. So I'm kind of going in and out of internal external rotation. Like you said, monster walks, I also do those. Side steps. One thing for me is I do like a side lunge in my general warm-up. So for me, that definitely kind of helps stretch out my adductors a little bit and kind of help get them warm. But other than that, like I said, I have decent external rotation, and I never really have to really focus on that. So for me, it's warming up for sumo isn't something that takes like a crazy amount of time.
I agree.
So what do we got next?
Do we want to go over, our general warm-ups?
Mike, you want to take this one?
Yeah, so,
Yeah, so I think we all kind of follow the same thing, release, mobilize, activate, where I know like foam rolling and trigger point therapy is always like a controversial topic for whatever fucking reason. you have the people who are like, I just get under the bar the second I walk in. You have the people that are like, I spend an hour on the foam roller. I think we're all in the same mindset of like, if you have a spot, hit it for a couple seconds, no more than a minute on a spot, if anything. Try to just like find whatever knots, get them out, mobilize. So that would be like the 90-90 transfers. I like to do a lot of the FRC stuff where I'm just like grinding through my ranges of motion. So like hip cars, shoulder cars, things like that. That tends to work well for me and a lot of our clients to just open up whatever joints we'll really be working on that day, and then activating. So for me, I have an issue activating my glutes, so I just hammer away at that for 5 minutes. And right now I'm just doing what they have me do in PT. Just simple like glute bridges, single leg glute bridges, just like clamshells, right? Clamshells, is that what they're called?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, or
Right.
yeah, side clams, whatever they are.
Yeah, whatever. Everyone calls it something different. Clamshells, band walks, and then I do front squats a little bit before. If I'm doing squats, I'll just do some sort of like front loaded just to get my core on with the squat pattern, and then go from there.
We should be edgy and start calling them banded oysters.
Just change the name, just fuck with people.
That was the worst joke I've ever made.
That was a joke?
Kind of.
For
Oh, no.
like in a strength and conditioning sense, like as far as warm-ups go, I'll typically do like stuff that you guys do. So we'll do kind of like a ground-based movement prep kind of stuff. So quadruped work. I like throwing bed bugs in, like core activation, glute activation, stuff like that. And then we'll move to like semi-specific movement prep. So let's say we're squatting, we'll do something like a high knee pull into a forward lunge, go for about 10 yards, do kind of a quad pull to a step back lunge kind of thing. So we're getting similar patterns to what we're actually working on, but we're still kind of like unilateral, getting anterior, posterior tip of the pelvis at the same time, kind of working through the same muscle groups. And then we'll go to a specific warm-up. So we'll go from that kind of stuff. We'll go 3 different planes, so sagittal, frontal, and transverse. Just kind of most of the transverse stuff I do is like core activation, and then we'll go either get under a bar or start with something like a goblet squat just to get warm, and then get under a bar.
How long does your full warm up take usually?
Like for me to do it?
For you to do it, and then generally for
About 10-15 minutes, maybe.
Okay. For me, I pretty much the warm up I do is kind of just because I wasn't really like battling any injuries like Mike was with the SI joint or anything like that. So for me, the warm up is pretty much I kind of just stole from like the one that we do at my job. Start off on the back, glute bridges, active straight leg raises. I don't really program this in for a lot of people. I kind of just do it myself because I like it and it feels good. I usually do, I don't know if they're considered iron crosses, whatever, but it's basically just spread arms out, spread legs out, right leg kicks up to left hand kicks up to right leg, repeat. Kind of just helps loosen up my back a little bit sometimes if it's feeling like nice and tight. Yeah, glute bridges, that straight leg raise. I get up, world's greatest stretch. Like Evan said before, knee hug into a lunge, side lunges, and then I do the band work like I said before. And then if it's like a lower body day, like I said, the 90-90 transfers, I also do some core activation stuff, whether it's dead bugs or planks or body saws or some sort of movement like that. And then usually for me, I can just start getting under the bar, unless it's like a day where I have to kind of do something beforehand, but that would be really specific and not too normal for my general warm up. So
I know for me, I like doing stuff with people, like stuff that's not typically something that powerlifters would do. So like if I'm coaching lifters, stuff like like really light banded flies. So just ranges of motion that you don't typically go in, just to kind of get warm there. So it's acting as I don't want to say like corrective work, but it's kind of getting you in somewhere you're not typically used to loading. So like bench press, barbell bench, you're in that same movement pattern over and over again. Like you don't really ever get any full horizontal abduction, adduction kind of stuff. So I'll have people do like really light banded flies, banded like band pull aparts, wall slides, something internal, external rotation, This is just for upper body stuff, and then a lot of like thoracic rotation work, because I mean I feel like a lot of people get stuck. Like so many people who try and arch really really hard, they're constantly in thoracic extension. They never really get any rotational work. So we'll do like single arm up overhead with either like a light dumbbell, kind of like doing eyes wide, standing eyes wide in T's, just to get some slight rotation from the shoulder elevation, and then also like quadruped, like hand behind the head rotations kind of stuff. And then even kind of like what did you call them? Iron crosses.
Yeah.
I'll do them. I'll have people do them on their stomachs. I call them scorpions. Like so, laying prone, arms out, and it's like opposite foot to opposite hand kind of thing. Just kind of get some like thoracic and lumbar rotation going on too.
Are you doing complete rolling when you do that?
No, so it's just you're trying to contract glute, reach opposite leg, so knees bending. So right leg goes to left hand. Just trying to get that thoracic lumbar junction to kind of move a little bit.
Okay, yeah. I do something similar, but I just do like a full roll. So I'll start with upper body rollover.
Oh, like segmented rolling stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I've done that before.
For me, with like the iron crosses, I've never done the scorpions. I actually do those when I was talking about laying on my back. So I'll lay on my back and kick my right leg over to my left hand. It kind of just helps, like you said, to get a little rotation in, and a lot of times it just kind of cracks my back and it feels good.
Right.
The stuff you were talking about, like doing like T-spine rotations and all that, sort of all that kind of stuff. For a lot of our guys, I won't usually program that in unless I see a need for it. Like T-spine rotations, I know a couple of our athletes are definitely going to see those, and they do see those. That's mainly just for people that I feel like have an issue in that range of motion, just because a lot of times, like I know if I go too crazy with a lot of those, and they're not completely necessary. Like people are kind of, they're just going to skip them. So for me, like I agree with what you said. I just don't put them in like everything. So I definitely, like those exercises that you picked though.
That's actually like a good point for coaches and having clients. Like, how do you get somebody to give them what's that term?
Like the buy-in.
Not the buy-in, the least something
smallest
dose.
Effective dose.
Oh,
minimal effective dose.
Yeah. So, like, how do you get somebody to do that? Right. What's your idea of the smallest effective dose for you, Evan? And then, like, how do you get your client to buy into it? Because a lot of people, they see the warm-up and they're like, "Fuck this! I'm just going straight around the bar." You run into those type of athletes.
I mean, I think it depends on the person. Like, I know for me, squats take forever to warm up because I have to get my knee warm. So I'll do 3, 4, 5 sets with 135. Then I'll put 185 on. And I'll do that for a couple sets. Just like tempo stuff, pause it, like whatever. Just get my joints moving. And then, because I know if I warm up too fast, my knees are going to kill me. Like, it's just not comfortable and my knees get irritated. So I know a lot of people who are like that too. And not just on squat, like it happens to them on bench. It just takes them forever to actually get warm. And that's why I kind of started incorporating some of the like the non-traditional ranges of motion stuff. Just you're kind of getting the tissue active from a different perspective than you typically do if you're just doing barbell warm-ups. I found it helps a lot with some people. And I mean, I can't say it positively, but I think it's kind of staved off some injuries, at least for some people, if not just from training volume in places that they need it, in different planes of motion kind of thing. Something else I've done more so on the strength and conditioning side than the powerlifting side is I'll have them superset, like let's say they're doing a front squat. We've got a football player doing a front squat. I'll have them superset it with either like an ankle mob or just some kind of like hip corrective or whatever it may be, just to kind of save some time, and it takes it away from doing all 20 minutes of a warm-up, and you kind of space it out into places that you need it. So in between your warm-up sets of squat, you're doing something that's going to benefit your working sets.
Yeah, in Superior, there's not a lot of times I can recall we ever just had one set of something. Everything is either supersetted or triple setted with something.
Right. And I mean, that's just the nature of strength and conditioning. You're on a time limit, so you have to kind of condense.
That's dope. Did we want to go into any of these other questions, or did we want to dive off into more into that injury, my current experience with it,
Yeah,
or
let's
do
do
we
that.
want to go back to
No, let's talk
which one
injury.
did you have? What's up?
Let's go injury.
Okay. So I got a couple questions. I put up a video today on my Instagram of me back squatting for the first time in 3 months, and it's been a big recovery for me from my SI joint. And I had a couple people saying like, "Oh shit, like you're already back squatting," and it really not. It's 275, right? But like when you're coming off an injury, that seems like a shit ton. And so I had a couple questions about that, and some other people just commented like, what did you do for programming? And I think one of the big things I was thinking about today is the idea that strength training is so neuromuscular, and it's not just like you need to work that one pattern in that one range of motion. You could work partial ranges of motion, or even just light patterns, like you were saying, how your warm-ups go with semi-heavy weight if it doesn't hurt, and you could still carry over that neuromuscular, I guess, gains into a squat. Is that something you'd agree with? Or does that even make sense?
I mean, you can that's how injuries should be handled, is you step off of a movement that hurts, still train something somewhat similar. So let's say if you're not squatting, you're leg pressing, or you're split squatting, or whatever it is, it's still it's training the same musculature through a similar range of motion. So you're going to have some closer transference when you go back to a back squat. Yes, you're going to have to learn the technique over, but I mean, you've still put some lean tissue on. You've laid a somewhat close neural pattern for it. You just kind of have to transfer it. So I don't think that's way too far off.
Okay.
No, I definitely agree. I think we saw it firsthand, Mike, for a long time during this block, phase of training that you've had while recovering from, the SI irritation, stuff like that. It wasn't up until very recently you started deadlifting off the floor again. You weren't really doing barbell loaded squats for a good period of time, and when you actually started, it was safety bar squats and front squats. And I mean, I can't say for sure that Bakash today was only day one, but I've seen you pull deadlifts off the floor, and you probably did it for like 3 or 4 weeks, since the injury, and you already seem to be pulling like rep PRs and just look really, really strong in your deadlifts. So I think that's definitely worth noting, and it's definitely possible to keep getting stronger. Like Evan said, you only got to relearn the technique once you come back. And for someone who was a pretty good lifter, before their injury, coming back probably won't take that long, and relearning the technique probably won't take that long.
Right, and I think like the big thing with injuries is making sure like the strength is there, not necessarily like in a pain-free range of motion. So maybe it's not that competition lift, but you're doing something somewhat like it, and you're progressing on it. You're not just kind of sitting around. Because I've seen people who, let's say they have a back injury and like they can't squat, they can't deadlift. They just fill all their volume with like a crap ton of leg extensions and leg curls and calf raises and stuff. And yeah, that's all well and good. You probably put on some muscle mass, but it's not similar whatsoever to what you're trying to get back to. So it's probably going to take them a lot more time to relearn how to squat and have their numbers come back up. Whereas, Mike, I don't know what you were doing. Were you doing like split squats and stuff like that?
Yep, split squat, reverse lunges, forward deadlift. It was starting with just RDLs and kettlebell swings. I was able to fit a shit ton of volume in with those.
Right, so you're still training like compound lifts that are using knee flexion, knee extension, hip extension. You're traveling through that similar range of motion. You're still loading it heavy. It's closed chain. I feel like that's going to transfer way better to what you want it to transfer to than something just like open chain, leg extensions, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm. And something you mentioned that I was thinking of today too is I think a lot of people either they have this idea that it's comp lifts or nothing, or comp lifts and it's like fucking going back to a lot of people started just like jerking around bodybuilding in the gym and they go back to what they know. It's like, all right, I'll just do chest and bicep curls. It's like you could fit in so much volume and so much movement pattern, like similar movement patterns like that. It's just about being smart and staying away, like you said, of the things that don't really hurt you. And I just want, for like the 20 listeners out there who might have an injury, like, don't just think you have to go back to going off everything for however many months. Like, do some research, figure out like what to do, and just go tackle what doesn't hurt. I think that's the biggest takeaway from that.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're right. A lot of people think it's all or nothing, and they'll completely change their programming, and it doesn't have to be. Like for me, I can't squat right now, or I can't like raw squat anything really that heavy. So I'm leg pressing 3 times a week, and I'm doing equipped squats because they save my knees. They don't hurt. It's not the same motor pattern. I mean, it's a completely different lift, but I'm still training something somewhat similar to it. And I bet once I go back to raw squatting and once my knee's healed, I'll be good to go.
How does your knee feel on other raw movements? Like with that similar, like split squats?
It feels fine because I can correct the issue that I'm having. So like my glutes don't control my pelvis as well as it should, or as well as they should during a squat. So I can really focus on that with a split squat or with the leg press, and it feels great. As soon as I can get myself in neutral and actually lift the way I'm supposed to lift, it's fine. But I have a hard time doing that with anything over 135 with a barbell squat. So I'm slowly relearning.
Matt, you got it?
Cool. I mean, I have a client right now who's actually been, having some back pain as well, and just another example of what we said before. I have him doing front squats, safety bar squats, RDLs. He hasn't had any pain on those, so I'm going to be progressing him up to rack pulls and just slowly start to bring the pins down, having him do a ton of core work and stuff like that. And yeah, while it may not be as fun to you as the athlete to not do the competition lifts, because that's, you compete in powerlifting because you like doing those lifts, it's still going to help you progress. His weights are going in all the exercises. He's not having pain, or he's having less pain than he was, and he's slowly getting better. And I think before, like Mike said, it's not just the comp lifts. You can work around an injury with so many different exercises. It's all just about figuring out what doesn't work right and just trying to make it work right with the smaller exercises. And once that's not painful anymore, start to put up back to the competition movements. It may take a little bit of time. It may take a long time, but I think as long as you believe in what you're doing and taking it seriously, and obviously having a practical reasoning behind the exercises you're doing, you can still definitely progress. Once you relearn the movement, you may find that you're where you were, or if not stronger. So,
honestly, I think one of the coolest parts about getting hurt was like I brought so much more fun back into training. Like I didn't feel like I had to go in and do, oh fuck, I got triples today. Like third time squatting this week, I feel like shit. Like whatever. Like I had so much fun just like trying new things and getting stronger at things I haven't done in so long, and like that kept me more into it.
Right, and I think that can go the other way too, with people who are just getting bored. You don't have to do the comp lifts all the time. You can take some time off and still keep your strength where it's at. Go do some variation stuff. Have some fun with it. Keep your strength, and then come back when you're feeling good. Like it's not. It goes right back to it's not comp lifts or nothing.
Yeah, how crazy is that mentality with just like people who aren't hurt? Like people are like the idea that I have to do all this today. Like you should want to lift. Like powerlifting isn't this thing where you're about to make millions of dollars off of. Like, dude, just go fucking lift something else for a couple months.
Yep. Completely agree.
Small little rant on that one.
Yeah, a little bit, but I think it was good.
Actually, something I want to throw in there real quick too, just like talking about progressing things. I was talking to a couple people the other day about it, and like, especially with conventional deadlifts, people who have like really terrible positions, like at the bottom, like they're rounded over, kind of like just can't get into like the proper starting position with like a flat lumbar spine, a flat thoracic. Take a step back and like progress. Actually, I think somebody's telling me, the people I was talking to said that Greg Knuckles actually talked about this, but it's something I've been doing for a little while. If you can't get into a proper bottom position, especially for conventional, start off from the top down. Like build your RDL to the floor.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing. I have a couple guys. I had one guy that was deadlifting. It wasn't absolutely terrible. It wasn't great either. So a lot of times when it comes to be like that, and especially if someone new hires me and it's not something that like I've been keeping my eye on for a long time, I won't always take the deadlift out immediately, but I'll have some like prerequisite exercises to the deadlift. A lot of times it just starts off like doing a hinge to the wall, pushing your butt back to the wall, making sure that you know how to load your posterior chain. You're not rounding or overextending your back, and you can kind of control like your rib cage and your pelvis through that range of motion. And then, like you said, go to RDLs. I also like kettlebell swings for that. Then you can kind of go into block pulls, slowly lower the pins down as long as they're hinging the way they're supposed to. And a big thing too is, like you said, starting from the top down. Not even just like exercise selection, but a lot of times when people are trying to really learn the depth, literally stand all the way up, do the same exact like hinge that I had them to start doing to the wall, but this time the wall's just not there. Like, all right, I want you to stand up. I want you to reach your arms all the way out. I want you to hinge your ass back, really push it back, load up your posterior chain. Once you're down as far as you can go, grab onto the bar, and then from there, they're usually, most people, unless their leverages are, deeming that not possible, they're usually like good to go right there. All they have to do is grab the bar, kind of tighten the lats up, make sure the core is braced, and then they're in a good position, ready to go. So I definitely agree with that for sure. I do that with pretty much all my new people that have a tough time getting into a good deadlift position.
Here's a controversial question for that one. We do that with the deadlift, and I'll do that with the bench too. Like just go board pressing if somebody's shoulders are hurt. Why don't most people think you should do it with the squat? I don't understand that.
But a partial range of motion squat?
Yeah, that's like
I think it's so much stigma around the quarter squat thing, and like have people. If somebody can't hit depth without completely rounding over, I wouldn't even put a bar on their back. Like, start with a split squat, or start if they have to use a bar on their back, which I don't know why they would, but go to a box. Not pins. Like, go to a box, and then
I think progressively like if they can't get all the way down, like that's some people I just think can't get.
Oh, are you saying like they physically can't get to depth? Yeah, I mean I've worked with a couple softball girls who structurally could not squat to past parallel. They couldn't even get to parallel. Their femurs were like this long. They had no torso. There was nowhere where they can go. I mean, they're going to their end range, and that's really all you can ask for.
Especially with athletes. But so say somebody's in the powerlifting. Ray Williams, I've never measured his fucking limbs or anything, right? But I see the videos of him training. He trains high, and it doesn't seem to be a fucking problem for him when it comes to his meat. Why is that such a?
I mean,
am I incorrect when I say that?
I think there's an exception for like super heavies. They have a little more switch to bounce off of, but like some of the guys who I've seen, like I'm not gonna name names, but like on Instagram they train 5 inches high, like they're really really high, and then they're like, oh, it'll be there on meet day. I kind of disagree because you're not going to be strong in a range of motion you've never been in.
Yeah, let's say 5 inches, right? That's one thing. Somebody who trains just at parallel, right? Say their hips, get them to parallel, and they feel good doing it, and it's not putting stress on whatever. Say their SI, their hips, whatever. Mm-hmm. Then come peak, they start getting a little lower. And yes, maybe they know I'm not going to hit the same or the projected amount because I'm going a little bit lower, but it saved their hips during the whole training cycle. No?
Oh, I agree. I mean, as long as they understand that they're probably not gonna squat as much as they could when they were training. I don't see a problem with that, especially if it keeps them healthy. Like if you're having somebody push really deep squats and they're always hurt, what's the point? And that's not to go off on a tangent, but that's why I really don't like all this excess like mobility WOD and like you gotta squat ass to grass stuff. You don't. You really don't. Like squat to your comfortable end range of motion and leave it at that. If you can hit depth and you hit 100%. Competition standard, then you're good. You don't need more mobility. You don't need to squat deeper. It's not going to benefit you anymore. Maybe on a bodybuilding like goal side, yeah, maybe a little bit more range of motions, a little more stimulus, but like in the grand scheme of things, it's not a huge deal.
And I know this might go. Matt, you want to say something?
Not really. I kind of was just agreeing with you guys. One thing real quick though about like you said about Ray, him training high. I mean, I've seen just like on Facebook, like through comment threads and stuff like that. People say that like on meet day, he literally takes like an extra hour to just like warm up and stretch and mobilize just to try to make sure he can hit that depth. Because maybe in training, it's like really, it's hard for him to hit that depth. He said, in a post before, his hamstrings and his quads get really tight. It's tough for him to hit it. So I think for him, it's just like, if that's the case, just like time constraint too. Saves his hips in training, like you said, and then also just like who has the time to literally stretch like for like an hour before they actually, lift. And he's already lifting 900 plus pounds every time he comes to the gym usually. So I can just imagine that being a pain in the ass. But like you said, for him, it works. So I don't see why there would ever need to be a reason to question it. But other than that, we can keep going.
Evan, how are we doing on time? Or you don't? That doesn't show you time, right?
We're at like 30-ish minutes.
All right. Quick thing I wanted to add to this conversation. On the opposite side of that, I feel like there's a lot of people who don't know how to create tension at the bottom. And those are the same people who are like, oh, you got to squat ass to grass. And it's like, do you really if you can't even fucking control it? Because they're just bouncing out of it. And then come meet day, they have no tension at the bottom. They tried bouncing. They're not used to the weight. They fail.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of times I see like the Instagram gurus saying you should squat that deep and blah, 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 this, that, and whatever. And then you watch their videos and like they squat down, they get to like a little above parallel. And then, like you said, all the tension is just lost. Their pelvis just goes all out of whack and just gets thrown all around. Positioning kind of looks a little wonky. And like you said, I see like a million times training looks great. They get to a meet, heavy weight comes on. They can't control their positioning because that's not a weight they're used to. Like you said, they get to the bottom, try to bounce out, rely on that stretch reflex, and it's just not there. Because I think once you lose the tension in the bottom, recreate that on the way up. So it kind of just buries people when it comes to meet day.
Mm-hmm.
Agree.
You got anything for that, Evan? Or
no, I think you got it. Like you have to train a range of motion that you want to be strong in. I think that's really all it is.
They're the same people who, when they do their pause squats, they do that little double bounce at the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck
and I made a post on this a while ago. It was like a couple months ago about how people who rely on stretch reflex, you have to actually train it because the stretch reflex itself isn't just your ass bouncing off your calves. It's an active lengthening contraction. So like if you're not contracting a muscle through a range of motion, it's not going to be strong there. So you're going to put heavy weight on your back. You're going to try and just bounce. And it's like you said, it's just going to go nowhere because you're not strong.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think we covered it all, which are on the target mark.
Yeah, I think that's good for this week.
That's how we felt about men. Do whatever the fuck you want, and that's about it.
Okay.
Let's wrap this one up then. So yeah, we'll see everybody next week.